Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to introduce the quadratic formula and we're also going to prove it. So let's go ahead and just say what let's just state the quadratic formula. So what it says is that if ax squared plus bx plus c is 0, for real numbers a, b, and c where a does not equal 0, then the solutions are given by this formula here. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and then this is all over 2a. So this is the quadratic formula. Now I'm going to zoom out, pan out, and we're going to prove this thing down below. So let's do that. I know you don't see a whole lot of proofs, but they're not too bad once you start to prove some things in math. So proof, and this is a little bit informal, but basically we start off with the original equation. Remember, that's what we're given. First thing we do is we factor out a out of the first two terms. And I put a plus blank and I carry down my plus c outside of the parentheses. And then on the other side, remember, I added something to the left-hand side, so I also need to add something to the right-hand side. So I'm going to put a plus blank here. Now let's think what needs to go in the blank to begin with. Well, we always take the linear term, I'll box it in green. We take the linear term, we cut it in half. So I'll write that here, b over 2, maybe I'll do this in green, b over 2a. Remember, we cut it in half, that's where the 2 comes from. And then we square that result. Okay, now we've introduced this new quantity to the left-hand side of the equation. We've got a times this, right? So to compensate, I need to add that same quantity to the right-hand side of the equation. A times the green quantity we just inserted, b over 2a quantity squared. All right, now let's think about how this factorizes on the left-hand side. We get a times x plus, and now maybe I'll just, in blue, this is exactly what needs to go here. B over 2a. X plus b over 2a quantity squared plus c is equal to, now we can simplify this a little bit further. We get b squared over 4a squared if we carry out what's in green. So basically we get b squared over, and then we got 1a on top, 2a's on the bottom, so we just get 1a on the bottom, so b squared over 4a. Okay, I'm going to take this, pan it out, zoom it out. Okay, now we need to get this c out of here. We need to basically isolate. We need to isolate the what's in red right here underlined. We need to isolate x plus b over 2a, or ultimately isolate x. But if we isolate x plus b over 2a squared, then we're on our way. So we'll subtract c from both sides. Let's see what this gives us. Well, I'll simplify it a little bit further. We get x plus b over 2a quantity squared, and then this is equal to, now I'm going to find a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by 4a of this fraction here. So that leaves us with b squared minus 4ac all over 4a. Okay, now we've got to get rid of the a that's in the very front right here. So we'll divide both sides by a. Excuse me, that's just going to give us, back to black, x plus b over 2a squared is equal to b squared minus 4ac. The top remains the same, and then the bottom just gets an extra power of a. Awesome. I'm going to pan down a little bit more. We're almost there. We're almost, maybe I'll pan out and zoom out to the original formula. Remember, that's the original formula up there. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's starting to almost look like what we've got at the bottom, but we've just got a couple more steps. Let's take the square root of both sides. So if I take the square root on the left and the right side of the equation, what's this going to give me? Well, we remember what happens by the principle of square roots. We get the plus or minus on the right-hand side. So in other words, we get, more particularly, we get x plus b over 2a is equal to plus or minus. Now, if we take the square root of a fraction, we take the square root of the top and we take the square root of the bottom. If we take the square root of the bottom, we just get 2a. And if we take the square root of the top, we can't really simplify it anymore. We just leave it as it is. B squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right, and then the only thing left to do is to subtract b over 2a from both sides. Notice that when we do that, I'll write it out just to be totally clear, but notice we get negative b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And now since these have the same denominator, we can combine them as a single fraction. And finally, we have arrived at the quadratic formula. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. We can just pan out and just verify that we get the same thing on the top and the bottom. Yep, these, what's in red here, and what's down here in red, they seem to be the same thing. So, yep, that's what we've done. We've just taken a quadratic equation and we've completed the square. And in doing that, we have gotten the quadratic formula. So I hope this video was helpful. In future videos, we'll talk a little bit more about some implications of the quadratic formula. And so without further ado, we'll see you all in the next one.